Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Living on the Verge, where it's just real life around here. You know, the fun parts, the messy parts, and what they're trying to teach me. And if you're new here, welcome. This is a space where we just take real life as it's happening and try to make sense of it together. Today's episode is one of those, I don't have it figured out yet, but I do know exactly what I'm feeling. And the best way I can describe it is this. I feel like I'm at a crossroads, but I can't quite name what the decision is. So this all started with just a regular old moment where I was journaling. I had proudly gone back to my morning routine of journal, Bible, coffee, exercise. And, you know, I was feeling really good about it. And I thought to myself, life is good, but something feels unclear or unsettled, or maybe like it's quietly shifting. And I don't want to be an alarmist here. This wasn't a crisis and I wasn't having a breakdown, but I also just didn't feel fully aligned in the moment. And if you're a regular listener, you know that alignment was my word for 2026. I did an episode on it early in the year, sometime in early January, and I'm quite sure, I'm pretty sure it was episode 89. If you haven't listened, go back and listen. It was a pretty good one. But all of that to say, I wasn't feeling fully aligned. And I just realized, Virginia, nothing is obviously wrong. Things are functioning. Life looks fine from the outside. You're having a good time day in and day out. Not every day's perfect, but for the most part, everything's good. And yet, something feels off or incomplete. Or maybe like it just isn't fully settled. I don't know. So I got to thinking about why I felt like I was at such a crossroads. And I thought, well, a good way is to define what a crossroads is. What is the real definition of a crossroads? Well, at its simplest form, a crossroads is a point where you have to choose between two or more directions, right? But for me, it's more a moment of a decision where the next step matters, but the right path, it might not be fully clear for me. And why? Well, because for me, and in this case, the path is not always urgent. You don't always have to make a decision right now. It's not always obvious what the next step is. Often it's something that is internal and not external. And so it can feel like uncertainty or just this quiet tension that kind of lives in the back of your mind. And a subtle awareness that maybe something is shifting. And for some of us, that feels uncomfortable. So I thought, you know what? I don't have a solution for this, but I'm just going to podcast about it and work it out in real time. So here I am. Let's walk through this together. Okay, we've established nothing is wrong. Life is actually good. Things are moving. Family's healthy, things are happening. I'm showing up actually way better than even just a few weeks ago. But underneath that, there's this feeling of not being fully settled. And it's really subtle. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's just there. It's almost like you can feel something is shifting, but you don't know quite yet what it's going to be shifting into. And for me, I think that's what makes it uncomfortable because let's face it. If something's clearly wrong, you set out to fix it. If something's clearly right, then you move toward it, right? But when you're in between, that's where it gets tricky. Why? Well, first and foremost, in this situation, it's not a loud crossroads like a divorce or a job loss or some major life upheaval. This is kind of a more quiet internal fork in the road, right? And for this fork in the road, multiple paths may exist. And none of them are super urgent, but all are meaningful. And there seems to be no real right or wrong obvious choice. So it makes it a little tricky. And this is the question that I keep coming back to. Am I underinformed, or am I avoiding the truth? Because I can look at my life right now and point to a few areas where decisions are kind of hovering. And I'm not afraid. We're working this out in real time. Let's talk about it. Well, there's this house situation where we have a perfectly fine, lovely house, but it's 2 stories. And in a perfect world, we would love our forever home to be a single story. And we've talked about moving several times over the last 2 or 3 years. And for whatever reason, timing being one of them, and the market and the interest rate and all the other mitigating factors, it hasn't happened. And we haven't moved the needle at all. And the notion is daunting sometimes. Like, I like where I live. I'm happy here. And a few years ago, we moved into this fantabulous, humongous house that was just a few years old and had all the upgrades and all the bells and whistles. And for the 3.5 years we lived there, I was always cold. I could never get the house to warm up. It always felt like it wasn't home. And I missed being at this house. So there's a little bit of a fear that, what if I feel that way again? And there's another kind of decision, not really decision, but a realization, and it's surrounding money. So last year, I retired from my big girl job and my corporation, and I realized recently that I was lucky enough not to have to know what money came in or what money really went out, because thankfully we were able to pay our bills without incident. And that has been the case for quite a few years now. Well, subtly realized that if I'm retired, we're down to one income. Maybe I should take a look at where our money's going again. And then there's the idea of working again. I recently got a really interesting opportunity offered to me, and it just made me realize there's another decision. And then there's this podcast. It's growing, so thank you. But it comes with its own sets of decisions, right? And so what I'm trying to kind of get at is none of these things that I'm talking about are urgent. There is no urgent desire for me to move or buy or sell or rent or relocate. There's no reason for it. As far as the money situation, well, clearly everything is still okay, so it's not dire, but it is something that maybe I should take a look at. And then the idea of working again might actually be good for me. But do I want to give up my time? I kind of love Winos on the Verge, and I think you guys like it too. So I don't know that I'm willing to come out of retirement, but I also see the benefits, you know? So, like I said, none of these things are urgent, but all of them matter. They're important. And I keep asking myself, do I just need more information before I can make a decision? Like, is this a lack of data issue? Or do I already know what I want to do? And moreover, what I should do, and I don't want to fully face it yet. And I think that's the quandary I'm in, because those are two very, very different things, right? One is practical and one is emotional. So this back and forth in my mind is why I've decided to bring this situation straight to the podcast and work it out in real time, because it's kind of interesting to me that one is a really practical way and one is very emotional. And as usual, I feel the need to dig a little deeper. And so let's dig. I think sometimes we tell ourselves we need a little more information. And what we really need is more honesty. And that's a little uncomfortable to admit. But if I'm being honest, there are probably a few things I already have that feeling about. But those answers, they come with some stuff, right? They come with risk, change, responsibility. And once you know, you can't unknow. So normally, just to share a little bit about the kind of person I am in life, I have been a risk taker, but always a very measured risk taker. Always the girl who writes the list of pros and cons and makes sure that there's a plan B and plan C that I hopefully never have to use in place. And all of that has served me very well and has gotten me to where I am today. But I'm starting to realize that lately, in this season of life that I'm in, I feel better when I'm being safer. And I know that. And I think that's where I've been sitting this week. So, that's very fascinating as I think it through. But you guys, then that means that I'm not stuck, but I'm also not fully moving either. And I've thought about this a little bit, but as I sit here and process it in real time, I realize that I'm just becoming more aware. So is it fear, wisdom, intuition, lack of data? Well, I'm going to be honest, I really don't know for sure exactly what it is. But as I'm talking it through with you today, I'm starting to realize that maybe I don't need to figure out the whole path right now. Maybe I don't need to solve every piece of my future. Maybe I just need to take one step. And maybe having feelings of being slightly anxious or unsettled or resistant are actually good for me to be having. And it's that inner voice speaking to me, and I need to listen. And, sometimes clarity doesn't always come from thinking and analyzing and writing lists of pros and cons. Sometimes it just comes from movement, right? From advancing the narrative, and just from doing one small little thing and then seeing what that movement with that little small thing shows you about what you need to do next. And maybe that's what kind of crossroads this actually is. Not a moment where I need all the answers, or I have to make choices about everything and wrap it all up in a little beautiful box with a bow, but more of a moment where life is kind of asking me to pay attention. So I wanted to put this to the test, and I took a few steps forward today. And I'm here to tell you, I'm kind of fascinated by the shift and the clarity that indeed these small steps have led me to. And I think it's because I'm in a place where I'm paying attention, and so the answers are becoming more clear. What do you think? So if you're feeling this too, if your life is good, but sometimes feels a little unclear, maybe ask yourself this. Am I missing information? Or is it more that I'm avoiding something I already know? And instead of trying to solve everything, just take one step towards something that feels a little more honest. And make sure that you're paying attention to what it shows you. Because maybe you don't need the whole path. Maybe you just need your next step. So for me, this crossroads has turned out to not be a bad thing. Yeah, it proved to me that a crossroads doesn't always have to be this dramatic turning point. It can be just a quiet moment where you realize your next step actually matters. Is there a crossroads in your life that maybe you are avoiding facing? I don't know, but that's mine, and I appreciate your help working it out, at least thus far. You know, I will report all the updates as I have them, as usual. But that's it for today. So if this episode has resonated with you, or you're finding yourself in a similar place, or maybe you know someone who this sounds exactly like, I'd really love for you to stick around or tell a friend. And until next time, I'll be right here, living on the verge.